Thank you, Asesh, for joining me today. And I'm really excited to have you with me and to hear more about yourself and your journey related to diversity, inclusion, leadership. So could you tell us a little bit more about yourself? What is your role at Salary Finance? What is the story behind Salary Finance? And what does your typical day-to-day work look like?
Yeah, sure. So I am one of the co-founders at Salary Finance and also the global CEO. We started as a startup about 5 years ago and have grown the business since. And so today we're a business of about 200 people. We operate across the UK and in the US. Essentially what we do is, we're a financial wellness platform. So our whole focus is helping employees in big companies across the UK and the US become financially healthier. And so we have about 500 clients. They reach about 4 million people. For those 4 million people in our community, we help them save directly from their income. If they need a loan, we provide a low interest loan. If they need insurance, we provide insurance. We provide financial education. So a whole series of products all focused on improving people's financial wellness for employees of clients who work with us across the UK and the US. And so as mentioned, we've been going for about 5 years now. The team's grown to about 200. We've raised about 100 million so far in terms of equity to grow the business. And in terms of what my kind of day-to-day looks like, really all sorts of things there, all focused on kind of growing a business. So, sometimes working with the team, sometimes doing things myself, sometimes speaking with investors, sometimes speaking with with clients. So a whole series of different things building a business.
Amazing. And what a great mission. Financial inclusion is so topical right now. So what a great mission. And so Salary Finance had a very busy year, to say the least. You acquired another company, you grew your workforce significantly, you did raise additional capital, congratulations, and you had your first diversity and inclusion training with me. So can you tell us a bit more about what were the biggest milestones this year at Salary Finance, and what changes happened in your organization, and what drove the need for diversity and inclusion education?
Yeah, that's right. So 2020 was a big year for us. Firstly, I guess financial wellness as a topic has become really in vogue. We've been doing it for 5 years, but I guess, what the pandemic has shown is that, not only is it a health pandemic, but it's also a financial health pandemic where the impact on people's finances is quite significant as well. So we've grown a lot as a business organically. Then added to that, like you say, we did an acquisition, and so we doubled the size of our UK business. We took on an additional 100 or so people. And then so when you kind of combine, and actually we took on that business in March just as COVID kicked in. So actually integration was entirely remote as well. So yeah, a big year for us, both in terms of demand for our services, but also in terms of growth of the team. In terms of kind of why we brought in yourself and why I would say diversity and inclusion has always been something which has been important to us. But I would say it's been quite kind of organic in how we've approached it, as opposed to bringing in an expert like yourselves into our organization. And the reason we made the flip was in the early days, as you build a team from ground up, you kind of hope that if you build a organization, most people with that type of size, and you can organically be diverse and inclusive when a great company. As the organization grows, and as you bring in 100 people that you don't know, and similarly we don't know them, they don't know us, that actually becomes much more difficult just to organically hope that everything is going to work. And so for us, two really important things this year. One is that actually we have a really strong one team culture. Both the original Salary Finance team plus the new colleagues we kind of brought on board. And as part of that, to also make sure that we are a diverse place, an inclusive place. And for us, what's really important is organization happiness, and actually people like the work they do, they like their colleagues, they can be their best. And so for us, we kind of felt that wouldn't just happen organically. We needed to put some effort, thinking, investment into it. And then as part of that kind of call in your support as well.
Amazing. And like you said, 2020 has been a big year in terms of diversity and inclusion, obviously with Black Lives Matter being such a prominent topic this year everywhere. We've seen companies being pointing the fingers at for, lack of diversity or even sometimes discrimination. So in your experience, what makes an organization successful in their quest to boost diversity and inclusion, and what are some of the challenges that business leaders might face when it comes to, you know, bringing that diversity and inclusion in the organization?
Yeah, so I'd say for the first thing which is really important is that I'd say from a leadership perspective, it's important that you authentically care. Because I think if you're just doing it because actually the PR is quite good or you're ticking certain boxes, then it doesn't quite work. So for me, I think the first thing is that actually you do care and you kind of do believe in it. And then for me, the reality is that you know, I think there's never like really an end to diversity and inclusion. Like everyone is fundamentally different. Everyone has fundamental biases, whatever they may be. You know, even if you're an expert in the field, you know, everyone has them. And so for me, kind of what's really important is that actually everyone recognizes that different people are different, to allow people to be happy, which is an important thing for me, for them to be good at their jobs, which is also clearly very important for us, for them to be kind of productive, that actually we need an environment where people can be themselves. You know, for me, you know, what I don't want is an organization of people that look and think exactly the same. That the whole reason we're successful, the whole reason lots of companies are successful, is where there is diversity of thinking, diversity of experiences, diversity of education, diversity of backgrounds. And so for us to really embrace all of those things, needs a recognition that those things are important, but then some kind of conscious thought around how you create an environment where those different kind of skill sets can come and kind of mix well and kind of perform together. So for me, I would say the two key things are, one is authenticity and kind of really believing it. And then the kind of second is, you know, they're not really boxes to be ticked. Just because you have X on Y metric doesn't mean it's kind of all done, but it's just a constant evolution to having, you know, different people with different skill sets, different backgrounds, really merging, forming, and kind of doing great things as a result.
Great. So here you say authenticity and consistent focus. Amazing. And I know some CEOs, leaders are listening to this, and, you know, what advice would you give to a senior executive who might be listening and they want to incorporate more diversity and inclusion into their agenda, but they're not sure where to start and what to do? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, so I think one of the things which has been really helped me, and I would say I learned early on, is you know, so Salary Finance has had, you know, thankfully, you know, is a high growth story. So we started, you know, 5 years ago. Like I say, we raised almost £100 million. We have, if you look at our clients, we reach 20% of the FTSE 100. You know, 1 in 4 NHS trusts, 8 of the big 10 supermarkets. We're live across all 50 states in the US. You know, we have great investors in Goldman Sachs, Legal & General, Bell & Shawcott, Experian. So we have kind of lots of, and then we operate in an area where, you know, kind of fintech is very kind of also in vogue. So we have lots of things on the outside which kind of make us, you know, like a poster child of a kind of a tech company. But kind of what I realized early on is actually, you know, for me that stuff is kind of secondary. It's kind of nice that the organization gets lots of kind of plaudits and so on. But actually, if as an executive, unless you can come into your organization and unless the people in your organization are happy, then actually the rest of it is really quite, you know, it's kind of nice, but it doesn't see you there for the long term. So for me, it's really important that actually, you know, yes, you get a certain amount of pride when you appear on the news or you read a paper, a story about your company. But actually, for me, that's very much secondary to an organization which is happy, productive, successful, people feel they belong. And if you do all of those things, your other things will follow. And so, yeah, my main piece of advice would be, you know, don't stress so much about all of the external metrics and, you know, which is kind of often called the vanity metrics. Like, focus very much on your people. And if you do that, the rest of it kind of comes together. Whereas actually, I would say we do come across organizations where the opposite is very true. Actually, you know, where we speak to people in those organizations, actually, they're not particularly happy. They don't have a huge amount of respect for their leaders. They don't feel they belong. But when you read about those companies in the papers, it sounds absolutely amazing. And so for me, it's really kind of what type of leader you want to be. You know, one that is really focused on the external metrics, or one where actually the external will come, but where you run a really good organization internally.
Love this advice. Focus on the people, focus on your internal metrics first. Love this. And I obviously Salary Finance had a diversity and inclusion training program for their senior leadership team, HR team, heads of people, etc. What are some of the wins or success stories that you can share with us to illustrate how positive the diversity and inclusion training has been so far, and what kind of benefits to the business have you seen so far?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing is that, for me, most people don't intend to be uninclusive or undiverse. So fundamentally, most people, I believe, are generally good, kind of a good people. And kind of what they sometimes lack is kind of fear, or you don't know kind of what you don't know. And so actually what the training has done is two things. One is it's reduced some fear because it's given people some knowledge, and if you have knowledge, you kind of you don't fear things as much. It's helped people understand and open their minds to kind of types of things which actually they may have done unintentionally with good intent, but actually the impact is not good. And then the third thing it allows us to is really have just many more conversations on the back of it in a safe environment, because we know it's fine. We know as an organization we value with it. We've got some terminology everyone understands. We kind of recognize that no one is perfect at this. So it's kind of created very much the framework by which we can debate and talk and so on. So that's been hugely helpful. And then on the back of it's also specific initiatives. So, we have a Women at Finance kind of group. And so that, it's been going for a long time. But actually, some of the recent things they've done, which have been really good, is they have a series where it's about kind of women empowering other women in the organization, and they interview different members of the team, and those interviews aren't just about what you do at work. It's really much your life around where did you grow up, what influenced you, your relationships with your families, how you manage work, and all of those types of things. And it's just been really fascinating to kind of learn about different people's kind of stories, both in work and outside of work as well. So yeah, I would say it's kind of, a combination of helping us have much more authentic conversations in a way which is much more knowledgeable, less feared. And then sometimes you just need a bit of time to think about it. And then secondly, there are specific initiatives which, have been kind of more in focus now we've done the training as well.
Love this. So reduce the fears around the conversation, have more conversation, and creating those groups with, women sharing examples. And you do have some very inspiring women in your team. So that's great to hear. And as we wrap up this interview and we look at 2021 and beyond, what is the one piece of advice you want to share with business leaders who are listening to us, and, you want them to take away from this interview to make a positive difference in how they operate?
So I would say, for me, the big thing is that, is to recognize that everyone has biases. Yeah, absolutely, kind of everyone. And so just because you're an amazing leader doesn't mean that you don't have biases, and you can be an amazing leader with biases as well. So for me, it's kind of recognize that you do, and recognize that everyone does. And as a result, kind of put some conscious effort in to make sure that those biases don't negatively impact your people. And then that actually, put some effort and some investment and some expertise around creating an environment where your people can all belong and be happy and do great things.
Great advice. Thank you so much, Asesh, for the great interview. And for anyone listening and interested to find out more about what you do at Salary Finance, where can they find you? How can they get in touch with you at Salary Finance?
So nice and simple. So it's at salaryfinance.com is where you can find more information.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Asesh. Thanks.